the members of the Science and Security Board moved the hands of the Doomsday Clock forward, largely, though not exclusively, because of the mounting dangers in the war in Ukraine. We moved the clock forward the closest it has ever been to midnight. It is now 90 seconds to midnight.
Vic, let me ask you this. Have you ever went like a really long time without eating, and then when you finally get a chance to eat, you like overeat and eat too much?
Oh, yeah. Who hasn't?
Yeah, not me. I haven't.
That's the story of my life.
I definitely didn't do it tonight.
Uh-oh.
So,
what'd you eat?
Anyway, I
purple,
heard that
green, brown M&Ms.
Yeah, you feel like a real jerk when you do that. But
hey, I don't know what the deal is with that like weird made up doomsday clock, but Bruce Dickinson says it's 2 minutes to midnight, so I'm going with Bruce.
2 minutes to midnight. I sent over something. I don't know if we can look at this graph. I don't even know. I don't have my glasses on, so yeah. I don't even know what it was. I just sent it to Katie. I thought it might be what I'm looking for. So here's the So this is the graph of the Doomsday Clock here. Let's take a look at this for a second. By the way, didn't that look like the Grim Reaper standing there, that cloak over the Doomsday Clock?
Yeah, I know. So I'm confused, Tom. I've never even heard of the Doomsday Clock. They just make up a clock and we're supposed to be scared of it? Like what? I don't even get it.
I honestly don't know what it is. Maybe Katie can bring up the Wikipedia in a minute.
What's it based on?
It's this clock, and they factor in all this data, and it makes a decision on how close we are to the ultimate doom. But there's a graph here of the history, and I don't know what the data is, but apparently the war in Ukraine has factored in, So, okay, so here we go. Yeah. Here's the graph, and it looks like in 1947, the graph, I don't know how to read this graph. Well, it looks like in 1991, it was 15 minutes to midnight. What are we, 90 seconds to midnight now?
90 seconds, yeah. Wow.
So in 1947, it looks like it was like 8 minutes to midnight. And then something happened in the 90s.
Where was it in like the whole Y2K? I would think it would have been skyrocketed when everyone.
Well, yeah, it went around 2000, right around there. It started. That's when it's making these steps down. It looks like some kind of a ziggurat, right? Like
it does.
This pyramid, taking these steps down, and apparently it's getting real bad out there right now, according to the Doomsday Clock. I heard this news today, and I thought for sure we should be reporting on this. A time of unprecedented danger. It is 90 seconds to midnight. Bulletin of the atomic. Is that what it says? Scientist. And yeah, here we go. The Doomsday Clock at 75. So apparently they've been doing this, for quite a while. I hope it never hits midnight.
Oh man, what will we do? Some guy in a cowboy hat's gonna say June 12.
Yeah. Wonder where that guy's at now.
I don't know. He should be on the Doomsday Clock panel.
He's redoing his paper is what he's doing.
He is, man. He's reworking the placemats.
Yes. So
oh man, I don't know. Maybe that's what the DC in Washington DC really stands for.
Yeah.
The Doomsday Clock.
Speaking of M&Ms though, did you hear that they're trying to cancel Aretha Franklin?
No. What did she do?
Well, apparently one time she recorded a song called well, I don't know what it's called, but there's a line in the song called "You Make Me Feel Like a Natural Woman."
Oh
and
no, I should have seen that coming.
Yeah. People are
offended.
This is not a joke. This is not a joke story. This is real.
That's why the Doomsday Clock is at 90 seconds. Yeah. It has nothing to do with Ukraine. It has to do with Aretha Franklin and the M&Ms, man.
Yeah. Well,
oh my gosh, it's so stupid.
Vic, apparently there's going to be bags of men M&Ms and women M&Ms.
Yeah.
The men M&Ms are happy because it's finally going to be quiet.
It's going to be quiet in there, except for the red M&M who has a panic disorder.
Yeah. So
he's nervous.
You know what? That joke is so good. You laughed 2 nights in a row.
It's hysterical. I don't know. We're gonna get a YouTube strike because
we are. Well, let me just say here,
sexist jokes.
I want to say no. It's because women are so bold and they're fighting for their rights. So they are.
Yeah.
It's because they're so tough, right?
Okay.
And that's why they're so loud and noisy. So
yeah, I think it's racist that they think the females are green, brown, and purple. Like, shouldn't we be red? I think we should at least have the red one.
It's amazing that, and I think we covered this last night, that the candy can have gender, but human beings cannot have gender.
Exactly. Yep.
So apparently the answer to Matt Walsh's question, what is a woman? All you gotta do is hold up an M&M, and there's your answer.
I guess. So now when I eat M&Ms, do I have to say he tasted great, or can I say these taste great?
Yeah.
Or are the pronouns still
they, them, he, she? I didn't know.
Oh man, I can't keep up. It's so 1984, you know, where the guys would sit at the desks all day and they'd rewrite the newspapers and then stick the old ones in the big tube.
Isn't it? Oh,
there's no such thing as Aretha Franklin anymore. She never wrote that song.
Can you imagine that? You know, if that movie or that book was written today, you know, and it's Winston at the end of the book and he's feeding him M&Ms. He's like, "What is it?"
Instead of Soma, or is that? Oh no, Soma's Brave New World, isn't it? The Soma coffee stuff. But yeah, it's M&Ms now.
Yeah. Trans outrage over Aretha Franklin's Natural Woman turns out to be a parody. It's not real.
Oh, good. I turn that Doomsday Clock.
You can tell parody from real news. Okay, thank you, Katie. I stand corrected. Now, let me just say, I was driving home from a sporting event tonight, and I heard this on the radio. And it was on legit radio, not Babylon B radio.
Right. Well, I think we can turn the Doomsday Clock back to like 120 seconds now.
Yes, come on. True. Give us a little bit more time. Okay, because Aretha Franklin is not going to get canceled.
She can still sing Natural Woman.
R-E-S-E-P-C, blah, blah, blah.
Hey, you know what I heard? Speaking of like awesome sexist jokes, but seriously, R-E-S-P-E-C-T was originally written by a man, and the main character in that story was a man who wanted respect from his wife when he got home, and they had to change it because it wouldn't have been popular.
Vic, you're gonna open up some.
We're back to 90 seconds.
Worms here that could get us into some trouble here.
I know. Oh man.
Did you ever notice that there's not a whole lot of songs written by women about women drinking themselves to death over a man?
Ah. Yeah. I guess not.
Well.
Why is that?
Well. We can't get into it tonight. Let me just.
Because they've lived.
I have some theories.
they lived their whole life in an M&M bag with all other females, so they just didn't know.
It could have been.
Man.
Well, maybe we'll cover that on an episode of Audiotopsy sometime. Why are there so many songs written by men about drinking themselves to death over women?
Yeah. But I don't know. There's plenty of like broken heart songs though for women.
There is, but a lot of them were written by men. Let me just say.
That's true.
But not all of them. Not all of them.
Yeah.
I agree with you, Vic. There's a lot, but
yeah.
Every rose has its thorn. Okay.
Yeah. So does that mean that there will not be any country music in heaven? Because what would the lyrics be?
Yeah.
The lyrics wouldn't even make sense anymore.
It's gotta
no
be
drinking,
something.
no heartache.
Dude, what is Johnny Cash doing right now?
Oh man. I'm pretty sure Johnny Cash could write a relevant song.
Yeah,
Yeah, he could do it.
He's written some gospel songs. Lots of them. So oh, guys, yeah. Anyway, welcome to Through the Black. Throughtheblack.com is the website. It's a true story. We are going to be in the Dayton, Ohio area at the Out of the Darkness conference. There's going to be Greg Reed, Sherry Clausen, Dr. Mike Spalding, Coach Dave Daubenmeyer, Vicky Joy is going to be there, Colleen James is going to be there, and Pastor Sean Carter is coming up from where's he from? Virginia, and he's going to be hanging out with us. So yeah, it's going to be a good time. Hey, I said it last night. Don't be late because I'm going on first, and I don't want you to miss what I have to say. So it's going to be a great time, folks. You guys can get signed up at throughtheblack.com. That's where tickets are on sale. Thanks for the support, guys. More and more people are buying tickets. I just want to mention that through February, you can get your hotel rooms at a discounted rate. Then they're going to get cut off. Okay. So they got to release those rooms back. They can't hold them for whatever reason. So all the information is on the website, throughtheblack.com. And then also we have t-shirts that are on sale. Our Ezekiel 8 clothing is on sale at throughtheblack.com. $5 off of hoodies. Somebody took advantage of that today. T-shirts are $3 off. Vicky Joy has a book. They only come out at night. They only come out at night.net, lamarzulli.com.
Net. lamarzulli.net.
Just keep typing domains till you find it. And yes, they only come out at night.net. It is about sleep paralysis. Another true story, we did a whole series on this a couple months ago where we covered every chapter in the book. Our friend Colleen James joined us in that endeavor. So anyway, all that stuff is out there. Vic, speaking of Colleen James, she as well wrote a book with Nancy Bowser, and the book is called, what is it called? The Lie Effect.
Lie Effect.
Yes. Overcoming Soul Abduction. So we don't have a slide for that. We got to get one for her. But look it up, and hopefully we got links to that, all that stuff in the show notes. Vic, what am I forgetting? I think I've told everything twice, but
I think we're good. I think we got it all. Conference.
Hey, I do want to mention, last week we did a episode of Audiotopsy, but it got shut down on YouTube. It is available over on Rumble. Don't forget to check us out on Rumble. All of our stuff goes up there, and you can watch it there as well. We appreciate, being here on YouTube and connecting with everybody. That seems to be where everybody's at. It's easy for people to be there. We just bumped up over 1,400 subscribers. It's not a lot, but I'm telling you, they are quality subscribers, okay? And we're not going for quantity. We're going for quality. And that's what we got Through the Black. So, why do they tune in? I don't know. Maybe it's because they want to check out topics like what we're going to be talking about tonight, Vic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is going to be a good one. This will be an interesting discussion. Are we ready to dive in?
I think we are. I think we covered it all.
Sweet. Okay. So we're going to be talking about horror movies, and I just kind of have a little disclaimer here at the get go, Tom. You know, what we're specifically talking about is whether or not habitually watching horror movies will open up doors where you will have demonic attacks. This is not the same question as should I be watching horror movies, period? Or are watching horror movies beneficial to my faith? Are they glorifying to God? Is it going to have an effect on my thought life? Is it something pure, true, lovely, excellent, admirable? So we're not just asking the question whether or not Christians can or should watch them. We're specifically trying to figure out if you don't have any open doors in your life, but you start watching these things, are you all of a sudden going to have an open door? Do horror movies in and of themselves have the power to open up doors where these things can start attacking you? So that's the focus. I think it's pretty obvious that watching a bunch of movies with blood splattering all over the camera and people being murdered and tortured probably isn't the kind of thing we should find entertaining or enjoyable. That's not really what we're talking about. We want to know specifically, will horror movies in and of themselves open up doors?
Vic, before we roll into this, I want to ask a question. Do you remember maybe one or two, like your first scary experiences watching a movie as a kid?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. And what's crazy is, even if I was to watch the movie now, I would laugh hysterically because we're talking 1970s stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
But at the time, it was so traumatizing to me that for years I would think about it and it would scare me. But it was, I think I've told you about it before. On Saturdays, they would play Creature Double Feature, and it'd be two like little suspense thrillers or horror movies in a row. And obviously, you know, they were on TV, so couldn't have been that bad. But it was the dumbest thing. Like, it was just a woman went into a cave and a massively huge rubber spider like bounced on her. You could probably even see like the string. But for some reason, the idea of a massive spider falling on me, like unawares, freaked me out. But then there was another scene, and this is crazy, Tom, because I couldn't have been more than 5, and I had no idea what it was, but I intuitively was so creeped out by it. It was a woman, and she wasn't dressed weird or anything, and she had a divining rod and was looking for water in the in the desert. And for some reason, that scene just freaked me out. I thought there was I intuitively knew there was something like evil about that.
Interesting. Yeah, guys, put in the comments what was your first scary movie or something that scared you. For me, I'm thinking of two things. One, I was less than 3 years old, and The
Wow.
Wizard of Oz came on TV. And when
Which
the
scene?
witch and the monkeys, the flying monkeys,
Okay.
and the witch came on, I was done.
Whoa, that's crazy.
Yeah.
I'm going to go off topic for 1 second, and then we're going to go back on topic.
Okay.
If you haven't watched Dark Side of the Moon synced up with Wizard of Oz, you're missing out. Okay, we're back.
I have done that. I've done that.
It's awesome. The flying monkeys, really? Okay.
Yeah. And that I was real young when I saw that. And then I remember it was the night of orientation for the 4th grade, and it was a Sunday night. Went to school to learn about your classes or whatever. Came home, and on TV was the movie Carrie.
Oh.
Carrie with Sissy Spacek. I did pretty good the whole movie until the end, where she puts the flowers on the grave. Do you remember that part?
Oh, vaguely. Yeah.
So somebody reaches down to put flowers on the grave, and then a hand reaches up and grabs. You know, it was a very kind of a calm moment.
Forgot about that. Yeah.
So I was on the floor like this, watching this, right? And
great.
It was like a cartoon. I honestly popped straight up in the air and jumped over the coffee table onto the couch when this happened.
Oh my gosh. So not counting like childhood, like my first like preteen, like older horror movie, to this day, I think it is one of the creepiest movies ever because it's not horror, it's not suspense. The movie is actually probably so slow that most modern audiences would be bored by it. But the first Phantasm movie,
Oh,
and the bad guy, the antagonist was just the tall man. He was just a tall guy, and he wouldn't like the people would be like running, and he would just be walking slowly with the smoke around him, and my brother and I saw that on TV one night at my grandma's house, and we're like, "What is this?" But it just was eerie and a very unique plot, and yeah, that was probably what whet my appetite for like, oh, horror movies. This is cool because we both got pretty heavy into horror movies in high school, my brother and I.
well, I used to go to my cousins on the weekend, and that's what we would do all weekend was watch horror movies.
Yeah.
Um, and I remember one night if you live in Ohio and you get you get the Cleveland station, there were hosts called Big Chuck and Little John, and they would host these movies, okay, like until 3 o'clock in the morning. And I remember they hyped it up for weeks. They're gonna show The Exorcist. The Exorcist.
Oh, okay.
So I fell asleep, but my cousin taped it, and then we watched it. I watched as much as I could, but yeah, it freaked me out. And that was the TV version.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
there were pastors, there were preachers that said that there was something evil in the fabric of the film of
Hmm.
that movie, and the filmmaker, the author, the screenwriter, everybody involved said they wanted to make they wanted it to make a realistic movie. I don't know how realistic it is. I think they give the demonic a lot more power. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but I guess if you keep making things worse and keep making things worse,
Yeah.
then that's what could happen. Of course, based on a true story. We've talked about that on here before. But
Yeah.
anyway, yeah. And then somebody up here says Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Oh
There, I
yeah.
mean, people will walk out of that movie. Okay. My
Mhm.
mom actually told me that she went to see that movie wherever. I think they were in Germany, my parents were, and
Hmm.
I think she might have walked out of the theater. Uh,
Wow.
in the
Wow.
Texas Chainsaw, Massacre.
Yep.
And there was a scene in there where the guy put a woman on a hook, and that's the part
Oh.
where a lot of people walked out. A lot of people walked out of The Exorcist,
Hmm.
just having all
Hmm.
kinds of crazy anxiety. Um,
Yeah.
anyway, uh, I I saw these movies, and then I grew to really like them. And
Mm.
I was kind of hesitating there because I didn't want to admit that I used to love horror movies.
Hmm.
I really did.
Yeah. I
And
did
I
too.
wanted to be freaked out. I wanted to see something twisted and weird.
It's like an
And
adrenaline
I
rush.
wanted to, just really warp my brain, apparently. Um,
Well, there was an adrenaline rush, and then there was something too about like the stigma, like where you know if you listen to metal and watched horror movies in the 80s, like you were like, I'm not scared, I'm not scared. Like so, it kind of gave you this persona that you're like a lot tougher than you probably really were. And I think especially as a girl, I just all my friends were watching all their little rom-coms, and I was like, I like horror movies. Like so, it was all just this like trying to cover up for trying to look tougher than I
I
was, right?
I just thought of another movie that I watched, and I'm pretty sure this had to have been on TV because this was before VCRs or we even had any. It was a movie, Vincent Price, The Fall of the House of Usher. Do you remember this movie?
Oh, I don't know if I ever saw the movie, but that's Edgar Allan Poe, so I'm
Yeah,
very
yeah.
familiar with that
But
story. Yeah.
there is a satanic element to that movie. There was a
Ah.
satanic cult in this house that was operating.
Hmm.
It was,
Okay.
whew, man. I'm thinking that freaked me out when I was a kid.
Wow.
So yeah. Anyway.
Well, and then, it's interesting, Tom, the different ways that the horror movie genre has had to change through the years, because there's a point where you watch so many of them that you become desensitized. So then they kind of switch to a different sort of like method. And then somewhere around like the end of the 1990s, like 98, 99, somewhere around there, don't quote me on it, Blair Witch came out. And
Mhm.
it was freaking everybody out because now it was shot like it was on someone's video camera, and they were promoting it in the beginning, like when they showed the commercials, they had this mystique about it where they didn't say this whole thing is scripted, and people weren't quite sure if it was really footage or not. And all of a sudden you're just seeing this camera and you're hearing all the breathing in the back, and so it was this whole new element of horror, because now it was like you're not just sitting here on your couch watching some scripted thing. You're being brought onto this journey that this might be someone really suffering. And that brings up the whole genre. We never saw them, but you remember the whole Faces of Death series?
Yes.
So that was like, okay, it's no longer good enough for me to just watch some scripted Hollywood production. I want to see real people,
Well,
in the
and we
electric
were
chair or
convinced
whatever.
that those movies were real. Found out later
Yeah.
that most of them were not.
Mm.
So, what was I just going to say? What were you just talking about right before?
Faces of Death, Blair Witch.
Yeah, Blair Witch. So Blair Witch was a game changer, and so was the movie Scream. That was a game
Yes.
changer as well.
Yeah.
And the Scream was kind of what they brought along with that film was the plot twist at the end. Okay, because you didn't know who the bad guy was. And then
Right.
the Blair Witch project was what's called a found footage film. Okay, where somebody finds a camera and it shows what happened. So the marketing campaign for the Blair Witch Project is kind of interesting because a documentary came out on TV saying that the footage for the Blair Witch Project was found underneath this house that hadn't been disturbed, like the soil hadn't been disturbed for 100 years or something like that. And they
but
found
it's
it,
the
and it was like,
camcorder footage.
what's that?
But they
footage,
had a
yeah.
camcorder.
So,
but they had a camcorder 100 years ago.
Right. Well, that, and that was the thing that kind of made you think, whoa, this is real. And they made a documentary that was totally fake. But the fake documentary was to say that the movie was 100% real. It wasn't. None of it was real. It was all fake. But they never told you that. Kind of
Right.
like in the movie The Fourth Kind, where that was a found footage film. I don't know if you've ever seen that. My brother and I saw it at the theater, and what they did is they played the reenactment next to the found footage. Well, the found footage was completely fake, but they made you think that it was real.
Wow.
So anyway, I remember leaving that theater that night, and I'm like, okay, what the heck is going on? I went home and researched it. I'm like, you guys are lying. This cannot be real. And it wasn't.
Yeah.
But they never told you that it wasn't real. They don't have to, right? So
Yeah. But it's interesting because it still ups the ante. Like, it's the difference between riding a roller coaster and bungee jumping. Like, you can be perfectly contained in this little thing, all seat buckled in, and they press a little button and it's a certain circuit and it's a certain amount of time. And it's like you get your little adrenaline rush, but for the most part, something's not probably going to go wrong. You're up in the ante when you're bungee jumping because you're the one that's got to jump off, and hey, that thing could snap. So you're upping the ante. And so I kind of feel that's what they were doing with the horror movie genre. Let's up the ante and make people believe that this stuff is real, because now you can't go home from the theater saying, well, that was just a movie. Now you can think like, oh crap, if I walk in the woods, I might run into this shack. And you know what I mean? So it's like they had to continue to find new ways to get people who were desensitized to hit that adrenaline rush.
Vic, you reminded me of something else. So
What's that?
we're gonna get into the show, folks. But so okay. Once upon a time, it was on a Sunday morning. We had a free HBO weekend, and the movie Poltergeist played.
Oh my
And we were
goodness.
actually watching it on a Sunday morning.
Okay.
Well, by Sunday night, this was at my cousin's house. By Sunday night, I'm back in my own neighborhood. I'm actually one street over, and I'm late. And I'm like, oh shoot, I'm gonna get in trouble. So, in order to not be in trouble, okay, I can cut through the woods to get home quicker.
Uh-oh.
And I'm like, oh, what do I do? What do I do?
Ooh, Salem's Lot.
Yeah. So, and you can cut through the woods and climb up this really steep hill, and it goes right into my backyard. And I am telling you what, dude, that I cut through those woods and I climbed up that hill. And if anybody would have jumped out on me, they wouldn't have survived. I'm telling you, because I was not playing. And I climbed that hill, and I was afraid of something coming up out of the ground because of the way those coffins came up out of the pool, you know?
Yeah.
And
Oh, yeah.
I remember I came in the back door, and I was like breathing real heavy. I was like, I'm home, Mom. I'm home. She's like, what in the world's wrong with you?
I'm not late.
And yeah, anyway.
Oh, man.
So
Tom, it's crazy. And I remember, because I remember being in 5th grade. I remember in 5th grade, I watched Poltergeist and Salem's Lot, like the edited for TV version, like that we taped on VHS, right? I watched both those movies so many times that I had the whole script memorized. And anytime my cousin would come sleep over, we were watching Salem's Lot. And I'm thinking,
explains a lot, Vic. Go ahead.
dude, I was 10 years old. What in the world were my parents thinking? Let me watch that kind of stuff when I was 10 years old. That's ridiculous. I would never let my 10-year-old watch that stuff. Oh my gosh. It's crazy.
I've never seen Salem's Lot, but yeah, Poltergeist.
It's creepy.
It was. It was. And then remember the clown scene in Poltergeist?
Oh gosh, of course. And the tree. The clown and the tree.
And the tree, yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
So anyway, guys, we want to hear in the comments, in the chat, like, do you remember these movies? Do you, what was your experience? We'll be interested to see what you guys have to say. Yeah, I wish somebody would have been kind of keeping an eye on the stuff that I was watching a little bit better. There's a lot more than scary stuff, right, in those movies, okay? There's lots of sexuality and things like that in those films as well. But I'm gonna follow your lead as much as I can. I know I've already been told, I gotta my yapper, I gotta be careful. I don't wanna. So anyway, just please try to have patience with me, Vic.
I have all the patience in the world.
You do. You are a saint.
Thank you,
friend.
So anyway, we're going to start out slow, and then we're going to ease into the topic. So just to remembering from the beginning, there's two elements to this discussion. Is it okay to watch horror movies? But that's a separate question from, if I do watch them anyway, can horror movies in and of themselves open up spiritual doors? And that's a really interesting question. And I don't necessarily know that conversation is going to go in the cliche direction that we might think it is. But anyway, Katie, I sent you an article, that Compelling Truth article, and I've got it on my phone here so I can see it. But I'm just going to read this. And so this is just one person's opinion. I'm just reading this to launch the discussion. Is it okay for a Christian to watch horror scary movies? As the horror movie genre expands, it seems the blood and gore, violence and shock increases in intensity. The more we become desensitized to depravity, the more it takes to shock a seared conscience and provide entertainment. Most horror movies are intended to activate a fear response and give the audience a rush. Many such movies possess supernatural elements, including demonic possession, spiritual activity, and evil incarnate. Let us consider that type of horror film. Christians know that our true enemy is a spiritual one and that the enemy's goal is to steal, kill, destroy. The evil depicted in many horror movies is real. We are told that our enemy is not of this world, but spiritual in nature. For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the cosmic powers over this present darkness, against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places. When the enemy's actions are depicted in a movie for entertainment, they are taken much too lightly. We are not intended to exult in his actions, but to stand firm against him by the power of Christ. I'm going to just stop right there. Tom, we can read more, but there's a lot there, so I just want to make sure we can comment here if we want.
So is it my turn yet?
Oh, yeah, it's your turn.
Okay.
I permit you to speak.
Okay, thank you. So I was taking a few notes here, asking the question, can it open doors? Is it safe? I think there's a number of things that can happen. One, what's the intent of the filmmaker? Okay. And that's one thing. Even if the intent is not evil, can the enemy use fear created? You know what I'm saying? And basically use that as a vulnerability to bring some kind of attachment or stronghold in your life. So, and I think a lot of that is true. I told this story. Let me go this direction. I told this story before. So, about my daughter. She was staying at a grandparent's house, and her brother was watching a movie. He probably shouldn't have been watching. I think it was The Ring. And she came in. She was just walking through the house, and she came in and stood at the door and was watching this movie. Nobody was there, protecting her, and we wouldn't have let it happen in our house anyway. It freaked her out. She called me and she wanted to come home. She was supposed to be staying down there for a week because she was taking swim lessons. And she called me. She wanted to come home. She wouldn't tell anybody what happened. And we didn't know what happened. She was really freaked out. So I'm praying about it. I'm praying for her. And then she told me. And then it just didn't make sense. It was like, what? Okay, it's got to be more than this because she was so freaked out. But it was the movie, and it really, really scared her. Okay. And the thumbnail for this show tonight it's got the creature or the girl coming out of the screen, and that's what happened in the movie. And it really kind of gave her what I call spiritual PTSD, right? And caused fear. And I didn't know what to do with her for a couple weeks. Okay, because she would have these anxieties, almost like panic attacks, because of this movie. So we prayed about all the spiritual stuff, and we broke all that off. But then there was a emotional thing, a physical thing, okay, that had to be dealt with, and it had to heal. And it took some time to overcome that fear. Okay, the spiritual part we dealt with, but there was an emotional thing that happened to her psyche that shook her up. And I kept praying, and I couldn't figure out, why isn't this leaving? Why isn't this leaving? Well, the fear did, the demonic stuff, we broke that off. But, when there's damage to the psyche in any way, it takes time, right? Just like if you cut your arm, it takes time to heal.
So I'm loving the way this topic's going, because one of the things, like we're always saying, we're not just going to go out and call every single person a Satanist. Like, there's an actual definition to that. Not everyone who wears black nail polish and a metal T-shirt is a Satanist, right? Same thing with this. It's like, I was reading dozens of articles, Tom, in preparation for this topic, and there were tons of Christian articles about how don't watch horror movies because it opens up all these demonic doors, and yet there was nothing really intellectually or theologically honest about. There's nothing to back up what they were saying. They were saying things like, it's not true and pure and lovely and excellent and admirable, so we shouldn't think on those things. But that's different than, did it actually open up a door that was closed before? And so I just feel like, is there a way that we can deconstruct this as Christians? Like, I know on this level, Tom, that these movies aren't pleasing to God. They're not glorifying. They glorify the enemy. They evoke fear. We're finding entertainment in things that are sinful. Like, I have no problem in saying this probably isn't good, but can we biblically prove that someone who doesn't have an open door, that the horror movie that they're watching is the thing that opened the door? And I think the reason why I'm having trouble with it, Tom, is because I started having all this sleep paralysis and stuff when I was 3 years old, and the horror movie stuff didn't come till high school.
Mhm.
So it's like one of these, which comes first, the chicken or the egg? It's not like every time I watch a horror movie, I had a bad dream, and so I could connect it. But then I think, sometimes I think maybe all of the paranormal stuff that was happening in my life is what gave me an appetite for this. Like, maybe this was the nutrition that I was feeding it with, and then it was just feeding off of each other. And so, I mean, I genuinely, I don't want to make any excuses for like why we can watch horror movies. What I want is, I want to have an intellectually honest and a biblical support for telling people that these things legitimately can open doors, and it's the solid argument that I'm looking for. So I don't know if you've put any more thought into that.
No, I think those are some good points, and you've got me thinking of so many different things. Obviously, there are a ton of movies that are based on occult ideas or satanic ideas. Okay,
Yeah.
and then we can look and see the producer, the director intentionally put these things in there because they wanted to promote them. Okay.
Right.
And then I think there's some situations. A good example of this is the movie The Exorcism of Emily Rose. Now, that movie, I believe, if you look at the history of horror movies, that's another turning point, right? Because when that movie came out, then it opened the floodgates for movies like that. Okay.
Yeah.
And so that movie came out. It was the director of the movie claimed to be a Christian, Scott Derrickson. Okay. And he said he made the movie to start conversations. Now, I think the movie is very accurate, very well done. And if you can handle any of that sort of thing, I'm okay with that movie personally. Okay. I actually showed that movie to my son last year because he had a lot of questions about deliverance. And I said, this is how you do it wrong. Okay. And I mean, he's, I don't just show him anything. Okay. But my kids have had an interest, and especially my younger daughter, she's like, I want to watch a scary movie. I want to watch a scary movie. And you know what we said? No, can't watch a scary movie. We're not gonna let you watch. And she's had some that she's been interested in. Then she's had older brothers that have tried to allow her to, and we got to keep an eye on that. Like, but we, are very careful about, films, not only scary movies, but all movies. I wish I could say that I was as careful with my older son as back when I was more of a knucklehead. Okay. And I remember I started watching the new Dawn of the Dead with him. Was the remake. And at the beginning of the movie, there was this part where this zombie girl pops up and runs down the hall. That was enough for him. It freaked him out. And he got mad at me for allowing him to see it. And I was laughing. I was like, what? That's not even, you haven't even seen the movie yet. That was nothing,
Yeah.
But that's how much of a knucklehead I was, okay, that I did not get that would, harm him emotionally. So, Vic, I think you made a good point. It's like, okay, maybe because of the sleep paralysis that you were drawn to this, or which came first, the chicken or the egg.
Yeah.
I think it can be both and or. Um, so I I'll tell you what, I watched a lot of horror movies and I used to collect them. Okay.
Mm.
I used to collect the DVDs. I would go purposefully seeking them out, and I would go to the conventions here in Ohio. There was a thing up in Cleveland called Cinema Wasteland, and all of the people would come. And I saw, the cast for Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I saw all of the people from, you name it, they were there. The Rob Zombie movie was out, House of a Thousand Corpses. I got my picture taken with the clown dude. I mean, this was years ago, almost 20 years ago now. But I was really into it, and the more weird and the more scary, the more I was interested in it. So I didn't have a lot of sleep paralysis back then. I sure as heck was opening the door if there was.
Yeah.
If horror movies open the door, then I definitely was doing it. And I see somebody put in there Rosemary's Baby.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah.
for me, I feel like I'm running to the end of the story real quick, but there's a lot to talk about here, Vic.
Yeah.
When I started taking Russ's courses and began learning my authority, began learning, the truth about the full armor of God and getting closer to God, the less I wanted to do with horror movies. One, because I was getting closer to God and I wanted his, his purity, his holiness. And two, because they weren't scary to me anymore. They weren't thrilling because I understood the authority of Christ. And I'm like, dude, these guys are wimps. These guys are weak. Everybody that you're saying is a bad guy. I'm not impressed by it anymore. And so let me throw this in there. I remember one time my son, he was living away from home, I think, and he came back and he said, "Hey, I want to go see this movie. Will you go see it with me?" And I was like, I don't really watch those kind of movies anymore. But because I wanted to do something with my son, and he asked me to do something, I was like, okay, I'll go do it. And it was a remake of the movie Evil Dead. Okay.
Okay.
With the crazy demon possessed people out in the forest. Freaked him out. And I'm just laughing the whole time because this is right in the middle of when I'm learning, stuff with Russ and training, and he's scared to death. Like, he's like a 20-year-old man about sitting on my lap on the way home from the theater, right? And he's like, man, I'm definitely going to church Sunday, this Sunday.
Oh my gosh.
But
that's interesting in and of itself.
I looked at it as an opportunity to share with him about the power of God, the authority of God. Somebody might be like, well, that's kind of a crazy way to do it, Tom. Maybe you're right, and maybe that wasn't the best decision, but I had a different perspective on it. I thought, well, my son's going to see this movie anyway. I'm not really interested in it, but I'll go along with him, and then I'll get to share the truth about the dark side.
Yeah.
And I was able to do that. I was like, well, this part of the movie was accurate. This part of the movie was not accurate. I said, but if they'll never make a movie with a spirit-filled Christian who knows his authority, because it'll be real boring, because it'll be over real quick, because we use the authority of Christ to kick out the demonic. So anyway,
so
send emails to throughtheblack.connect.
Yeah, right.
.com.
Okay, so I had kind of forgotten about this until we started talking. So I stopped watching horror movies back in high school, because it was something I did with my brother, and when my brother moved away, I didn't really care anymore. But anyway, fast forward many, many, many years. In about 2011, 12, somewhere around there, I had moved back to Pennsylvania, And I had a friend who wanted to go to the movies one night. And so I'm like, okay. And she wanted to go and see Fright Night, which was the remake with, what's his face? The Irish guy. And my brother and I had loved the original Fright Night because it was like this Vincent Price kind of guy who had a TV show, and they wanted him to help him vampire hunt. And it was kind of like a dark comedy almost, right? Well, this version was a little bit darker. It just had a little bit more kind of occult thread work through it. It was a little bit more, it was an absolute remake, but it was just a little bit more dark and a little bit more sensual, I think, than the first one. Anyway, that actually did open a door for me in that it re-piqued my interest in horror again. And this was a time that I probably shouldn't have been delving into that stuff, but my mom was really sick. My mom was dying. So I think I was in sort of a morbid, dark mood. I was in a morbid frame of mind. So interestingly, because it had been so long since I watched horror movies, I was watching them, but they were very, very disturbing to me. And I remember watching season 1, episode 1 of Supernatural, that Netflix series or whatever. And there was just something about that episode that was so evil to me. Like the spirit behind it was so evil that I didn't watch any other episodes, and I never went back to it. And I remember being freaked out that night. Like I remember feeling kind of scared to go to bed. And again, it wasn't necessarily the content, but there was like a spirit coming out of that for me that was just too much. And then I hate to admit this, Tom, oh my gosh, during that period, I watched the entire season 1 of American Horror Story. And I didn't watch any of the other seasons, but why I'm embarrassed to admit that, Tom, is every single episode made me feel convicted. And I kept watching the stupid thing. Like it was gross on every level. And it was disturbing to me. I could feel the Holy Spirit in me saying like, no. And I watched the whole stinking, like, and to this day, it like that season like disturbs me. Right. So at that time in my life, and this is where I really want to be intellectually honest about which came first, the chicken or the egg, like what opens doors. That is the same period of time where I had a lull for 15 years of not having sleep paralysis, and my sleep paralysis did come back. And it coincidentally came back after I was watching these horror movies, but it also came back at a time where my mom was dying. I had an extremely stressful job. I had a situation in my life, which years later, after hearing Russ talk, I think that there was some coven people in my life. So how do I know? Oh, it was the horror movies. I mean, there were so many other things going on. And so again, it just becomes this, which came first, the chicken or the egg? Was I drawn to the horror movies because there was so much grief and angst already going on in my life at that time? So this is where I just really am personally trying to figure out if like what if the sweetest, most innocent, purest, like homeschooled little person in the world that didn't have any open doors, like if this person went out and watched like all the Nightmare on Elm Street movies, would that in and of itself open up a door? That's what I'm trying to get my thumb.
Yeah, I think it would. Okay. If we're having a conversation here, I think it would open some door. I don't know what door. The enemy's going to work with whatever he can get, right?
Right.
We know that this is worldly, that this is evil, that this glorifies evil.
Glorifying, yep.
And it's going to open some kind of a door if it's not going to bring fear or a fascination. I never watched the American Horror Story, but it would have been a show that I loved back in the day. If it would have been around back then, I probably would have watched every one of them. Okay. Right. And something, I'll tell you what, I was going to say something happened to me The only thing I can say is God changed my heart about these things, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Because I already explained, I already told you guys the story. I used to love these movies. I used to love these movies. I would have loved the American Horror Story series, okay? And I get what you say when you say I was embarrassed to watch it. I know what you mean. I'm embarrassed from all the goofy stuff that I watched. And I mean, sometimes we want some kind of escapism or something like that. So there's no judgment here, for you or any of the listeners, right?
Yeah.
We are trying to give our best, most godly advice. You know what I'm saying? What does the Bible say? Think on these things, and that's at the end of James. I don't have my Bible or my glasses in front of me, but whatever is true, whatever is good, whatever is, these are the things that we should be thinking about and filling our mind with and meditating on. And you know what I mean when I say that, when I use that word. So, but anyway, when I began studying all this, God just took away my desire for all of those things. And then also, I didn't think they were so cool anymore. Like I used to think they were really cool. And again, I don't know what it was about it, but I'm embarrassed that I thought that stuff was cool. In the last 15 years, I have probably watched less than 10 horror movies, and that's a high number, but I'm just going to say 10 to be safe. I don't really need to see them just because I know how they end. I know exactly what's going to happen. And I realize that the new movies that they're making are, they're up in the ante and they're trying to make it more sick or more twisted, or, they gotta do something because people can't get scared anymore, right? Off of the old stuff or off of the things from 20, years ago. So anyway, God took away my desire for that. All praise, all glory to Him, and I'm thankful for that. I'm not even really interested in it now. A couple times I've watched some movies for research, and then a couple of those times I'm like, I wish I wouldn't have done that. Now there are some movies that I thought, man, maybe I should watch this for research, but I'm like, you know what? I don't want to do that. I don't want to give that any of my time. Now I'll tell you, Russ, he didn't have a lot of problem with watching a lot of these movies, okay? And matter of fact, one time he called me up. He said, hey, I'm going to watch this movie. You want to come up and watch it with me? And it was the movie The Right with Anthony Hopkins, I think. And it was about a Catholic priest who did deliverance. So, of course, any film like that, he's going to watch, right?
Yeah, sure.
He watched some other movies that I wouldn't watch, like the movie The Witch, I think. And again, maybe I shouldn't be saying this stuff because a lot of people think in their mind, well, if Russ watch it, then it must be okay. I don't want to be a stumbling block for anybody. I tell you that we need to live as closely as we can to God's word and to live as holy and as righteous as we can. I realize we take on God's righteousness, but God said, be holy because I am holy. And these movies are definitely not holy. I use the example of the Exorcism of Emily Rose. That movie, I think, is okay. I'll tell you a movie that we watched that I wouldn't even consider it a horror movie, but I watched with my son in the last few months because I liked it when I was a kid, was the movie The Lost Boys. Okay. It was just a movie that I saw in 1987. I love that movie. And we're kind of going backwards watching films because there's nothing good now. So, and again, don't take parenting advice from me. Okay. You know your kids, you know your family better. And if I were you, I would, follow the advice in James, whatever is pure, whatever is true, whatever is, so
Yeah, absolutely.
sounds hypocritical to say, don't do what I do, but I hey, folks, remember what I said. I'm not perfect.
Well, and Tom, I have no desire whatsoever to watch horror movies anymore for many, many reasons. But there's another sort of adjunct genre that's not really horror, but there's a lot of paranormal stuff out there now where it's not necessarily gore or murder or gratuitous torture, but it is very much glorifying witchcraft and occult power and the things that go bump in the night, and people now are almost craving these paranormal experiences. They don't want to watch it on television anymore. It's like they go out searching for these things. They go off to graveyards at night, and they have their little spirit boxes, and they go into abandoned buildings and they try to find haunted places. And all of those reality shows sort of birthed this whole like ghost hunting movement, and it's like this adrenaline rush that people want. Now they want it for real. And I think that a lot of these little, paranormal podcasts and stuff, even those, if we become obsessed with them, it can turn into intrigue. And I think that if we have this secret desire, like, I know this stuff is spooky and I know it's not good, but man, I really wish I had a cool campfire story to tell. I even think that can be an open door, because the enemy can hear that and go, oh, you want one of these experiences? I'll give you one of these experiences. And so I think even that is extremely dangerous to be flirting with too much.
Well, the demonic are very big opportunists, and you're right when you said that. They're looking for an opportunity. So we don't need to give them any ideas, right?
Right.
And I'm not suggesting we walk around in fear of everything we say, that, it's going to be the enemy, getting ready to use something we say against us. I don't think we need to live our lives that way. So I wanted to give another example of a movie that I watched because somebody told me about it and I wanted to see it for myself. Was one of the Paranormal Activity movies. I didn't see the first two, but I think it was part 3 where they had a satanic ritual in it. And somebody said it was in there, and it was like Marriage to the Beast, because there was a little girl in a wedding gown in the movie. And there was a coven there, okay, that was the root of all of the Paranormal Activity. Like I said, I didn't see the first two, but I went and saw that one just because I'm like, okay, the person who made this movie knows something, okay? Kind of interesting. But again, just because a movie has something in it doesn't mean I'm going to run out and watch it. I try to be very careful about what I see. And, at the same time, maybe months or a year will go by, and then I'll watch something. Then I'm shocked. I'm like, I can't believe you watched that. You know what I'm saying? And
I do.
It could be a YouTube video. It could be a movie. It could be like a series or something like that. Go ahead.
I was going to say, did Russ ever talk about this, Tom? Do you think it's possible? I loved what you said earlier in the show, that the intent of the filmmaker, that line is just going through my head, because we can go into something innocently, but the intent of the filmmaker, like, I don't know if Russ ever talked about this. Is it possible for people, let's say there's a filmmaker who very much is charging this film, can a person, like, I know I can watch a video of a sermon and the Holy Spirit can come through that screen, and I can be filled with the Spirit, and I can be emotional. And so I know that spirits can come through mediums, not like psychic mediums, but like mediums like televisions. So if the occult can harness that too, is there such thing? Are there movies where something can attached to us just by our watching it, if that was the intent of the filmmaker.
So I'm gonna mess this story up a little bit because I don't know the names of the people. So John Travolta's wife made a movie before she was his wife a long time ago. Okay.
Okay.
I can't think of her name, but the movie was about a girl seeking help to get away from a satanic cult. Okay.
Okay.
And spoiler alert, what the girl was doing was the person that she was seeking help was actually the target, and they were going to bring him into the cult. Okay. But she acted like she was trying to get out. So Russ said, and he's talked about this, that one of the people that he was ministering to said, our people made this movie. And when you get to the climax of the movie, there's a satanic ritual going on, and everybody's in on it. The police, everybody, and there's nowhere to hide. And this girl was in on it the whole time, and she tricked him to pull him in. Russ even said, and because there's some graphic stuff in it. Kelly Preston, thank you. Yes, an early film from Kelly Preston, and it was about exactly what I said. So there's an example of somebody saying that there was an intent behind that. Sometimes it's to kind of to show us what they're up to or what they're doing. I don't remember Russ ever talking about that, but I believe that it's definitely possible. And there was definitely a lot of occult type movies, like Kenneth Anger was a satanic filmmaker. Okay, now all of his stuff was very underground, right? Somebody mentioned Rosemary's Baby in here. Man, I'm telling you what, if you watch that movie, wow, I personally believe it's very accurate as far as the people, the network of people that were involved in the satanic cult, especially at the end of the movie where they came from all over the world to see this baby, this Antichrist baby, right? And it was people from all nationalities, there to basically worship the Antichrist. And it was an underground thing. It was, I don't remember if it, said it was directly linked to politics, but I felt like there was a dark element to that movie. Roman Polanski, as we know, that's not the only dark movie he made. The guy's not even allowed in the United States. He'll be arrested probably if he tries to come back here because of crimes against children. So I think you can definitely put some stuff in a movie. Russ said that the chanting in the movie Eyes Wide Shut is backwards Latin or something like that. And it was real ritual stuff. So I think it's definitely out there. I don't know. I guess I've never seen a real satanic ritual to know what to compare it with. As we've said here many times, Hollywood makes millions of dollars, on movies about people who are possessed, satanic cults, but they want to deny God, they want to deny the Bible, they claim atheism or whatever, and say, the source material, like we've said, Vic, you said it. It's like, if it weren't for the Bible, what would the occult do, right?
Yeah, they'd have nothing. That's just interesting because I'm really intrigued with what you said about the intent of the filmmaker, because I do think that television is such a strong medium, and I'm just not so sure our brain can always differentiate what we've watched on television and what we've actually experienced ourselves. Like when it gets filed back into the non-conscious mind, which is just a warehouse of memories, and it doesn't have any sort of morals or ethics attached to it. I remember reading a long time ago that the reason why kids are so scared at night when they dream, like babies and stuff, and while they'll scream, is because the brain doesn't differentiate necessarily reality from a dream. And so with a lot of these movies, I wonder, we walk away from it and we don't even remember we saw the movie necessarily, but it's all like in our non-conscious brain. And I'm wondering if our non-conscious brain differentiates between what we've seen with our own eyes and what we've seen on television. It's just a modern concept. I mean, 300 years ago, people didn't have to ask those questions because everything that they saw was something they saw with their own eyes. And so I just wonder if these filmmakers know things that we don't know, and if these films are more dangerous than we think, because what if our brain is actually then registering trauma, because we can't necessarily differentiate that the girl running through the woods, out trying to outrun an axe murderer, was actually something we saw on TV and not an actual memory. And I'm just speculating wildly because
we're not even talking about video games tonight, folks. That's a whole nother level. I mean,
man, yeah.
We're talking about digital blood, digital murder. And I'm just mentioning that as a footnote. So I don't know. I think all these are good points. I definitely think that these movies can open doors. I've heard stories of people who are watching movies and their kids were having nightmares, even though they watched these movies, they started them after their kids went to bed. They were opening up some kind of doors in their house where their kids who never even saw the movie, okay, were waking up and having nightmares.
Yeah.
So it's almost like an invitation, to the demonic. Again, depending on the film, okay, depending on the movie, maybe the intent or the person. If a Christian that loves the Lord for some reason sits down and watches a dark movie, they're going to have more protection than somebody who's not. But we're also opening that door, so we are, in a way, we are releasing our protection. You know what I'm saying? We're opening a door willingly. Okay, so it could be deadly. So the enemy will take a lie and destroy your life with one lie. So imagine what he could do with a demonic movie.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I just want to corroborate that too, Tom. Oh, many of the people that have written to me who are trying to kind of get to the source of their sleep paralysis and their paranormal experiences will do these prayer mapping exercises and stuff. And a lot of times it comes down to something that a family member brought into the home. Like they had a brother who had the pentagram up in the attic, and a dad who's maybe watching stuff after hours he's not supposed to be watching or whatever. And I do tell people, and it's the same thing with the horror movies, when you open a door to your home, the enemy isn't always going to necessarily attack the most sinful person in the house. They're going to attack the most vulnerable because they're bullies.
Yeah.
And so if you're a parent or you've got little children in the house, you just have to understand that in the spirit realm, everything you look at, everything you touch, everything you bring into that house, potentially you might go a long time thinking you're getting away with it because there's no consequences, and it might take a long time to figure out that they were manifesting in your kids who aren't communicating it to you.
Yeah. Folks, think about how far we've come. When the movie Frankenstein came out, it freaked people out. Now we think it's humorous, right? Where it's like, okay, this is not scary at all. Not even for young kids, right?
Yeah.
Really, if they see Frankenstein or Godzilla or something like that, think about how far we came. There was a story about a guy who was so shaken by the movie Frankenstein that he called the owner of the theater and he said, "If I can't sleep, you can't sleep either."
Oh, goodness.
He was so mad. He's like, "You shouldn't have played this movie, even though I willingly went and watched it, but I'm blaming you for playing a scary movie." So yeah, that's the story.
Oh my goodness. That's funny. Hollywood ruined that, by the way. Frankenstein wasn't really supposed to be a horror movie. The book is amazing.
Yeah. So anyway, Boris Karloff, man.
Oh, the master.
I like that dude.
Yeah, Boris and Vincent. They were the two.
Yeah, and Bela Lugosi were the OGs.
Yeah, yes. Bela Lugosi. Yes, yes, yes. Oh man.
So
Yeah.
and I think
Good old
Lon
days.
Chaney played the Wolfman. See, I know my horror movie history. So
Yeah.
I liked them all from the beginning to the end. And think about some of the original movies like Nosferatu. That movie was
I saw
almost
that.
lost because it was a ripoff of Dracula. And they destroyed all the copies, but they were able to find one. Talk about a freaky movie, okay?
It is. No words. No.
Yeah, no words.
No
And
script.
then the movie, I think it's called Metropolis, one of the very first movies made. As soon as they got a camera, they made a satanic movie, right? So as soon as and they probably made pornography too. As soon as they're like, okay, what can we do with this thing? This camera is amazing. Let's make scary movies and pornography.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And
well, I think that's why they invented the VCR, didn't they?
yeah. Well, that's the same thing. When they got the VCR, they're like, okay, let's make pornography out of it, with this thing. So, man, what's the guy? There's a story about that. The guy from Hogan's Hero. I can't think of what his name is. Bob.
Oh yeah. The main guy, right? Who died young? Yeah.
I can't think of what his name is, but he was involved in some scandal and got killed. And he was like a peddler of pornography.
Now I'm gonna have that theme song stuck in my head all night.
So,
I know nothing.
Anyway, guys, we just want to, encourage you to guard your heart. Okay, I think it's Colossians 4:23. It says, "Above all else, guard your heart, for it is the wellspring of life." Okay, and is it okay? So anyway, what we watch, what we listen to, can be spiritual poison, right? If you're going to eat food, you don't go to the dumpster and fill your plate, right? You want good, nutritious food, okay? And the same thing is true when it comes to, media that we take in. So I tell you what, I've seen so much garbage, so many horror movies, so much ridiculous stuff that I can't believe it didn't rot my brain out. So the fact that I'm here on this show renouncing it is just testimony to the renewing power of Jesus Christ, the renewing of your mind. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Romans, help me. Is that Romans 11:1 or 12:1? Yeah. Romans 12.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah. And our minds, even though, hey, I'm going to be 50 in less than 2 months, we're still impressionable, right? And they're still sponges. I mean, imagine what it does to children, but it can still have an effect on us. So, Vic, I really like what you were saying earlier. You're not trying to justify it, and you're trying to make sure that you're not trying to do that. And we don't want anybody to think that it's okay to do that. So, I mean, this is a warning. I'll be interested to read the comments of this video for the next couple of weeks, because some people discover this down the road and they tell us a story. You know what I'm saying? I mean, no doubt that Ouija boards are open doors, open invitations to the demonic. I think that these films can be as well, but they're maybe they're not as intentional, okay, as as like a Ouija board and the participation there. My theory about horror movies is that they are dangerous because they convince people that that is what evil looks like. So they're not looking out for beautiful, tricky evil in real life. That's a good point. I like that.
Yeah.
And very, very good point. Yes, the enemy is he looks good. If he looked as scary as what he did in the movies, we wouldn't want anything to do with him, right?
Right.
So,
Right. Right.
yes.
Well, and the new age, that's like a good example of that too, because for as many people that have scary experiences like or astral projecting and all that, there's a lot of people that come back from astral projection or ayahuasca that talk about love and light and beauty and angels and eternal life and the mysteries of the universe being revealed to them. And there are people that come back from those experiences euphoric, not having been scared, right? So he can come as an angel of light too.
Yeah. And folks, I just want to say I would be very careful if you think that you need to watch a movie for research or something like that. I have done it before, and some of those times I've regretted it. Some of those times I'm like, okay, I'm glad I checked that out. That makes sense, and I'm able to speak about it now. I'll tell you here. Let me give you another example of something that I put off was the movie called Devil House. Okay, and it was a docudrama thing about the house that Russ and I went to. Okay. And it was in Gary, Indiana, and this guy went there, made a movie about it. But I was actually going to be speaking on how to do deliverance of haunted houses. And I wanted to watch that movie. So I sat down and watched it. And it was, it wasn't that bad. I mean, once you've been trained by Russ, you can watch that movie and be like, okay, this guy's a moron. He just, he basically begged the devil to come and beat the crap out of him. So, anyway,
Strange request.
Be careful what you watch. Be careful what you listen to. Be careful what you read. Be careful what websites you go to. These things can be charged. They can open up doors. Okay. And maybe not for you, but somebody else in your house or in your life. And maybe it's not a stumbling block for you, but it could be for somebody else, because they can look to you and say, oh, okay, so so-and-so watched this movie or this show, so it must be okay. No, we're not saying that. And everybody, I think, has a different level of what they can handle. But God's word is the same. You know what I'm saying? And we need to default to that. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I hope I'm doing a good job of kind of explaining this tonight, Vic. I don't want there to be any excuse, or I don't want anybody justifying, any of these things. I really feel like there's a lot more that we could talk about this subject. We could really get into some deep stuff, but this is kind of like a general overview, right?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, I just want to reiterate too, I am not looking for a justification to keep watching horror movies.
Yeah.
I am looking for a biblical foundation to explain it to others, because like I said, when I was doing research this afternoon, I read dozens of articles from Christians saying it opens doors, and then there was nothing in their article to back up their claim, biblically or otherwise. It was all just this circumstantial evidence and emotions based. And I don't want any of the things that I teach other people to just be based on experiential emotions and things like that. So I wanted more of a solid foundation for that. But I think the only other thing I would add, Tom, too, to what you were just saying is, I know that the Holy Spirit has a still small voice, but we've all had that experience when we're watching a movie or listening to music. For me, it happens more when I listen to music, Tom, because I really don't watch a lot of movies. But you'll flip on the radio and you'll know within a few seconds, you'll hear the Holy Spirit saying, like, turn this off. I don't want to listen to this. And then you have that little war with the flesh because you like that song and you like that guitar riff. But if the Holy Spirit tells you to shut something off, like, do not grieve the Holy Spirit. Yeah, just shut it off. Like, it's just a song. It's just a movie. You know, it's a war with the flesh. Don't let the flesh win. If the Spirit's telling you to shut it off, just shut it off.
Amen, Sister Vic. So, hey, guys, again, thank you for subscribing. Thank you for giving us a thumbs up and just everything you guys do just to kind of help us grow this channel. You guys are the ones that are doing it, and we just appreciate you so much. We love hearing the feedback, what you guys think. Maybe you think we're crazy and that these films don't cause any harm. Hey, guess what? You're allowed to share your opinion, and we want to hear it. We're always growing and learning. Maybe you think we're not strict enough. I don't know. Tom, I can't believe you watched that movie with your son. You're a bad guy. Yeah, there's the email right there. Right there. Send it right there. So, and anyway, guys, yes. We're going to be back tomorrow night. Don't forget Reclamation Project this week. Don't forget the Audiotopsy show coming up on Friday. Pastor Sean's going to be back this weekend. And then, Vic, is this the 4th week? Is next week the last week? Before our little break, we're going to be back, and we got 5 more weeks. So 30, we're going to have 30 plus shows. I think we got 36, well, counting next week, 36 shows after this week. So you know what, guys? We want to put out content that's going to be edifying, and we're trying really hard to do that. So thank you for the prayers. The enemy does not want us to do this. And there's a lot of things that happen behind the scenes. We cover your prayers, because when we step out to do this, we make ourselves a target. We're not complaining. We know it goes with the territory. But if you think of Vicky, Colleen, Sean, Katie, or myself, and you want to say a little prayer for us, we will take it. We just appreciate it so much, guys. You guys are amazing. And we're going to see you tomorrow night. So, okay. Bye. Hey folks, I just met the witches and Satanists, and they're going to allow me to do an interview with them, so let's see what happens.